Pest infestation? Call Bugman, because when you see red, bugs are dead.
Well, we have made it to the end of the year. We made it to Turkey Day, at least. It's tomorrow. Today is 11/26, November 26th. I waited till today to do this podcast, mainly because we're not doing radio this week. Radio is off, so what I plan on doing is going through like I normally do on the radio here, and then I'll post everything like I normally do for everybody to see, especially on the pick sheet and everything. So we'll just kind of get into some things, a little bit of things, more coaching hire stuff, and then we'll hop into what we got going on. And I will have a couple more that I'll put up probably Saturday. This is a weird week. If you're betting, this is a weird week, right? You've got teams that may not care. You've got coaches that are leaving. You've got teams that do care. You've got rivalries that want to screw over their team or their opponent. It's a weird week. It's always been a weird week. Vegas always does good during this week. So even if you go back and look at stats, they're not. They're very hard. They're very hard to do this week. In fact, this whole year, I've said it a couple times how I thought it was getting much harder for college to bet college these days, and I just wanted to throw some numbers. I saw this the other day. Favorites, so this is basically money line. This is college football money line. Favorites are 632, 179 straight up. So if you would have bet every single favorite this year, you would make a lot of money on the money line. Well, let me rephrase that. I don't know that you'd make a lot of money because a lot of those straight ups would be, you would win $10 betting 100. So I don't know that you'd win a lot. In terms of against the spread, 416 the favorites have won to 381 they've lost. So, you're talking about a difference here of about, 35 games. That right there tells you it's close. 416 of the favorites against the spread won, but 381 they lost. So that just tells you how good Vegas has got this year. In terms of, and I think a lot of it has to do with this injury report that they have now. Most big conferences have an injury report out, so that's something to keep in mind going this week, is what I'm going to say. Coaching hire news, obviously we know Franklin's at Virginia Tech. He's doing good. I've seen they got a 4-star running back yesterday, or maybe it was the day before, and there's a couple of others that they think they've already hired. I saw that Bruce Arians was on the McAfee show and said that they've got 5. So they might be starting to release them right around Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Plus, they're having another official visit day in Blacksburg too this weekend. So that's good for Virginia Tech. I told you I thought it was a good hire. I think it's going to be a good thing for Virginia Tech. And the ACC, you better watch out. You're on alert because the Hokies are coming. Now, I said something last week too. I want the Hokie fans to understand. You also got to keep in mind, just because you have this money, everybody else already had this money. So now you've got to sell something else get them to come to you. If the money's the same, what is the difference between one place versus Blacksburg? So that's going to be the big sell now he's going to get some people from Penn State to come. And I really think you want the interim coach right now that's at Penn State. I think Penn State's going to end up screwing themselves by not taking him, and he's going to come down. Or what they'll do is they'll hire somebody else and demand that they keep him. But I think he's going to come if the way things are looking right now, the tea leaves. So, looking elsewhere, Oklahoma State has hired North Texas's coach. He has been up for some of those. His name's been in the mix for some of those jobs. I was reading today. Now, don't quote me on this. I don't know if it's 100%. I haven't had a chance to get into it and look. But from what I was seeing earlier today, South Florida's coach, Alex Golsh, is going to be the next head coach at Arkansas. I made a comment on here last week. I even said it on the radio to watch Lincoln Riley. I don't think Lincoln Riley's going anywhere. I think USC come back and gave him some money. I don't know that any of these schools really wanted Lincoln Riley, and that might be partly the reason. But I thought maybe LSU or Florida could maybe be able to steal him based upon what's going on there. Now, Florida, LSU, and Ole Miss are all up in the air, waiting on what Kiffin does. You know, I don't know if you're living under a rock. They said that he was going to decide after the Egg Bowl, which is Friday. You know, I don't know. I would like to think that Lane Kiffin is just doing this so he can have a big hurrah if they beat Mississippi State on Saturday. But I don't know. A part of me tells me now that LSU might be too much. And it looks like they pretty much are all the same. They've all offered about $13-14 million. You know, the question is, I mean, at Ole Miss, yes, there's pressure. But you're going to be in the playoff possibly. And, you know, now you're going to go, if you go to LSU, man, the pressure's on. It will be interesting to see what happens if they win the Egg Bowl. They're going to the college football playoff. And if Lane Kiffin says, hey, I'll be your coach, but I'm staying with this team until the end of the year. That'll be interesting because, I mean, the question is, does LSU and does Florida, whoever it ends up being, do they wait? Do they wait and, hey, he ends up doing good, winning, maybe he wins a national championship. You can't leave on that, right? I wouldn't think you could leave on a national championship. Ole Miss pulls off a national championship and then he bolts. I don't know that he could do that. So that's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. And it'll be interesting to see what happens with the college football playoff if they make it and their head coach isn't there. That's going to be interesting as well because just like Florida State a few years ago, they didn't have their quarterback and they didn't get in. I mean, I think this might be playing into some craziness. So, you know, that's going to be interesting come the end of, we'll say to the end of Saturday night. Florida, I've kind of been hearing that Jedd Fisch, the Washington coach, is high on that list. We'll see. And then again, you're going to have, if he does go to LSU, Ole Miss is going to open, and if he stays at Ole Miss, LSU is going to open. So what do you do there? So that's going to be interesting. Those are some of the question marks that we'll hear about at the end of this, we'll say Saturday afternoon, Sunday. We should start hearing some things. And then, of course, next week you have the conference championships, and Sunday they'll release the bracket. So, okay, we'll get to the lines. Let's look at this week. Look at the bet sheet this week. Keep in mind some things. We're doing this is Wednesday, so some things might change between Wednesday and Saturday, especially lines. They can move 1 or 2 points here. So just be on the lookout for that. There could be some craziness. I mean, just looking quickly, like Oregon, Washington went from 6 to 6.5. Alabama, Auburn went from 5 to 6. Duke was -4, went to -1. That's interesting. SMU was -10. They went to 13.5 on the road at Cal. That's interesting. And then another one I thought was interesting was Texas Tech was -20, and they've jumped to -24 at West Virginia. Hey, look, I'm not saying West Virginia found a little bit of a stretch earlier in the year, and I'm not saying they're going to beat Texas Tech. But the fact that that's gone from 20 to 24 really perks my ears up. So pay attention. That might be on our list, depending on what that line does. That might be on our list on Saturday. But anyway, let's start Friday. We got Georgia at Georgia Tech. Georgia's a 13.5-point favorite right now. And look, we're just going to say this. Everything points to Georgia in this, right? They got the better team. They got the better athletes. They've been playing really well. Georgia Tech just blew it last week. But what we've said on the show, we've said on the radio show, we'll say now. If it's too good to be true, sometimes it's just too good to be true. And the question I would have is Brent Key listening to somewhere else? In other words, if Brent Key is listening to Ole Miss, or was he listening to Arkansas, or maybe he's listening to Florida or LSU, we don't know. Those are questions we don't know, but I'm going to go Georgia Tech plus the 13.5, mainly because I think those guys at home, they played them really well last year. If you remember, went to, I can't even remember however many overtimes. I think Georgia Tech at home will find a little bit of something, especially on the defensive side of things. And I'm not saying they'll win, but I think 13.5 seems like a lot, and everything seems very easy on that pick. So for that reason, I'll take Georgia Tech in the points. Now you have Clemson and South Carolina next. Now this is Saturday. South Carolina minus 2.5. And, look, Beamer pushed his chips to the middle of the table earlier, last week, when he said that this time next year we'll be talking about South Carolina in the playoff. And listen, that's great. It's not going to happen. That's not going to be the case next year. He may end up at 12th. I just don't see it. I think that was him buying next year, changing offensive coordinators. If he's doing, I've said this before. You can't win there. You're recruit. It's hard to win there. You're recruiting against Georgia. You're recruiting against Clemson. You're recruiting against the bigger schools up north. Not to mention you're going to be now recruiting with James Franklin, Bill Belichick. That's just a difficult place to be. Florida State comes up through there. Alabama, Auburn comes up through there. It's just a tough place. So, I'm glad he said it. I'm glad he believes in himself and his kids, and I guess he should. But, I don't believe it, and I don't think that will be the case this time next year. Now, we'll look at Thanksgiving next year and see if he's in the mix, but I don't see it. I do like the fact that he was confident enough to say that. Fire his coach. They played pretty well after. Let's be honest. Clemson and Dabo. I feel like Dabo wants to get fired. I feel like he wants to go somewhere else. Clemson's just not making that decision, and so for that reason, at home, I'm going to take South Carolina minus the 2. Would I be shocked if Clemson shows up and wins this game? I would not. But they just haven't showed up at all hardly this year, and for that reason, I'm going South Carolina. Same thing here. This is Florida State at Florida, Saturday. In my notes, I said flip a coin, right? Because you don't know who's going to show up in this game. You've got Florida State, who really, really wants to fire their coach, but if they fire him and the assistants, it's upwards of $100 million. So that's the only reason they haven't fired him. Because what's he won? 5 games the last 2 years? So that's one part of this equation. On the other side, you've got Florida. They've already fired their coach. Which are these kids showing up? Are they really caring about this game, or are they going in portal? They're going to go through the motions. I don't know. It is at Florida. Part of me wanted to take Florida. Yeah, I really did. But I also think that Florida State just might be a little bit better suited to kind of grind out a win, if that makes sense. I will say I'm looking at my sheet and I see I have a little bit of a typo. Where I'd started it was 2.5 and it went down to 1.5. So it's the last I checked, it's 1.5. And so we're going to take Florida State plus the 1.5 on the road at Florida. National games, I'm going to do some national games, and I'll come back to the Virginia Tech UVA game. Ohio State and Michigan. Michigan is a 10-point dog. The magic question, I guess, for me would be, are the two really good players, Tate and Smith, are they playing for Ohio State they did not play last week. I would say that they are, but there have been some rumors or speculation that one of them that was limping around a little bit. So, I don't know. That seems like a lot in this game. It's at home, Michigan plus 10. We know they're going to try to make it ugly. OSU proved last year you can lose this game and go on. I'm not saying they want to do that. But I would say that some people are not taking these college conference championships as importantly as they have in the past. So for that reason, I'm taking Michigan in the 10. I think Ohio State wins, but I think Michigan can make it ugly. It's going to be cold. That's another thing to keep in mind this weekend. We haven't really had any cold games anywhere. I mean, there was a couple here or there. There was some snow going on, but it's going to be cold in the Northeast, Midwest this week. So for that reason, I like Michigan. Another one I got, Oregon at Washington. Oregon is a 6.5-point favorite. To me, everything says Oregon. Washington's defense at home has been good. Well, in general, has been good this year. You just don't hear about them because they're on the West Coast. For that reason, I love home dogs. I'll take Washington in the 6.5. If I were to bet it, I wouldn't bet it until day of, hoping that I get to 7. But I'm going to take Washington in the 6.5. LSU at Oklahoma. Listen, Oklahoma has to win. This is must win to get to the playoffs. We know that. LSU, we don't know what's going on with those guys. The same as Florida. Lost a coach. I think going on the road helps them. I think their defense has played well all year, with the exception of a game or two. And Oklahoma's offense hasn't been very good. To me, this also says take Oklahoma. It seems too easy, but 10 points seems like a lot also. And for that reason, I'll take LSU and the points. So I gave you 4 locks. I gave you 4 locks this week. Excuse me. I'm going to give you the locks, and then I'm going to go back to the Virginia game. First lock, Missouri at Arkansas. Missouri got their quarterback back last week. He played pretty well. Defensively, they were a pretty good team. And, Arkansas, we know they got him a new coach today. It's at Arkansas. I just think Missouri's quarterback and their defense, to me, are the two better things right now because we don't know how he's feeling with that hand injury. So for that reason, we're taking Missouri minus the 2. Bama at Auburn. Bama minus 6. This seems too easy also, but I would say Bama needs to win this to go to the college football playoff. Auburn's trending the other direction. For that reason, I'll take Bama. Vandy at Tennessee. Everybody seems to have been taking Vandy this week. Look, Tennessee can score some points. And I know Vandy played their best game last week of the season, but they're going to have to turn around and play that again in terms of points scored in order to keep up with Tennessee. So for that reason, I'll take Tennessee at home minus the 2.5. Excuse me. And then my last lock, I have not been right on them yet, but I just know it's coming. I've been around for 30 years. And we've rode home dogs a lot this year, and we've done pretty good. Texas A&M at Texas. A&M is a 2.5-point favorite. Home dogs have done really well for us. And for that reason, I'm taking Texas plus the 2.5. I think they pull the upset. I'm a little bit upset about it, but I've talked myself into this frenzy of if they lose, they get a bye, and they're still in the college football playoffs. So from what I see, Texas's defense is probably going to stop A&M's running game. They're going to put it in Marcel Reed's hand. And let's be honest, the kid has thrown. He didn't throw any last week, but week before last, he threw 3 interceptions. And you can't do that, especially against a Texas team defensively that has a good secondary. So for that reason, I'll take Texas and the points and the upset. And lastly, everybody waits for this one. It's Virginia Tech and UVA. Again, you'll see on the sheet it has two different two different numbers. It's UVA minus 9.5 and UVA minus 10. And the reason is, one, I was in a hurry, and two, that thing, whatever site you look at, it's different. One's a 9.5, one's a 10. So I would wait to get the 10 if you're going to pick Virginia Tech. This is something I don't know that I've said before in a write-up between UVA and Virginia Tech. Well, I know it isn't. This has a potential, in my opinion, to be a blowout. I think UVA's offense is really good. And if Virginia Tech keeps coming out there running the ball 45 times, dinking and dunking and getting sacked, getting drone sacked, I think it's going to be a long day for Virginia Tech. The question to me would be, how quickly do they get rid of drones and put the Watson kid in if things aren't going well? Because if you get behind Virginia Tech, you're in trouble. That's my thought. Virginia did lose their second leading tackler, their middle linebacker. So that could play something into this. But for that reason, UVA's offense, I'm taking UVA minus the 9.5, minus the 10. We got to get, if you hang around, you might get 10.5. I don't know. I think this number will shoot up by Saturday. I'll be interested to see if it comes down, but I just don't see anything in Tech's hurrah that makes me think they can keep this game within 10 right now, especially if they're going back with drones and all that good jazz. And they are. And maybe rightfully so, but they got to be quick to pull him if he's getting sacked. And, for some reason he thinks he can twirl around like Johnny Football and get out of the pocket, but he can't. They need to run him north-south, and that's it. So, anyway, I hope everybody has a good Thanksgiving. I'll put everything on the site so you can take a look at them, and then I'll put some more on there Saturday morning when things kind of get a little bit clearer. So, anyway, everybody have a good Thanksgiving, and we'll talk to you next week. Heathens Kettle Corn and Mobile Grill. You can find them at Dr. Pepper Park, local Roanoke events, and also now doing fundraising with teams, organizations, churches, etc. Find them on Facebook, Heathens Kettle Corn and Mobile Grill.